Yeah,
All right. So, question from Alexis Ceniceros. He says, "What are some factors that Real Madrid let go of Odegaard? Was he inevitably a failed experiment? Did Odegaard not want to try and compete with other players? If so, why?"
I believe I believe the fact that Real Madrid would have rather probably sold Ceballos and Isco, but ultimately there was no interest from other clubs, and there was for Odegaard. There was a team willing to offer 40 million euros, and definitely Odegaard didn't seem to be as confident about his chances of playing key minutes and crucial minutes for Real Madrid this season after what he saw in the preseason with Ancelotti, and obviously during his talk with Ancelotti again. Ancelotti himself confirmed during one of his press conferences that he told him that there were 8 players for those 3 midfield spots. So I think it was a mixture of all those things. I think ultimately we talked about this last week. I think, Ian, that Real Madrid, the board, Real Madrid's board, were very disappointed by Odegaard's decision to leave the club in the winter transfer window to Arsenal last winter also. And I think that was a key turning point in Odegaard's career in Real Madrid, because also I felt like maybe some of his teammates and a few members of the dressing room saw that Odegaard wanted a role that he hadn't earned in Real Madrid yet. So I think that was ultimately a combination of several factors, and that's probably what happened in my opinion.
So, I would also just add, like, if you haven't already, Alexis, and I imagine you haven't because you posted this question, I wrote quite extensively about this whole situation, a very extensive article explaining every angle. But I will say, after I hit publish on that article, Odegaard put out that social media post where he's kind of pointing blame at media, or not pointing blame, but just calling them out and saying, like, you don't know the
Yeah,
truth and all this. And I actually think, look, like, we kind of know the truth, Odegaard. Like, you can't hide behind this. It was up to you. Everybody knows that. So your ball was in your court, and you decided to go. So don't say like it's this person's fault and that person's fault. The club had uh, had you in the plans for this season. Now, possibly what they valued of you maybe is not what you wanted. Maybe you thought you were a key starter, but I act like, as highly as I rate him, and I think he's good enough to be a starter now for Real Madrid. But when Ancelotti says I can't guarantee anyone a starting role and I can't guarantee Odegaard, and he lists like 8 midfielders, he's also right. He's right. Like, nobody should have a guaranteed starting spot. So if you can't accept that, then look, I don't know who else you want to blame but yourself. I don't blame Odegaard for wanting to leave. I don't blame anyone for making their really life choices unless they're harming other people. And Odegaard has every right to go if he wants to. So I'm not pointing fingers,
right.
but I just don't buy it what he was posting on social media. That's all.
Yeah, and Kiyan also I feel like there's a big point here after Isco's performance in the first half against Levante. We
Hmm.
haven't talked about Isco's performance yet. I feel like you definitely did after in the post match podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I haven't had the opportunity to talk about it in the podcast or in an article for that matter, other than that immediate reaction. And I feel like if this is what Real Madrid are going to get from Isco, obviously not this level of performance or quality, because that depends on the opposition and all, but this level of commitment and grit from Isco, and engagement from Isco, I think that Real Madrid made the right move and Ancelotti made the right move and decision to put Isco ahead of Odegaard in the rotation, because what we saw from Isco the other day, I'm not sure if Odegaard is already capable of doing. I think Isco was absolutely brilliant the other day as a central fielder. I'm not sure if Odegaard is ready to complete that kind of performance with that kind of say character and personality as Isco showed the other day. So if this is the version we're going to see of Isco now that Ancelotti is around and Zidane is not the coach anymore, if Ancelotti definitely thinks that Isco is capable of showing this kind of commitment week in and week out, I think Real Madrid definitely made the right decision, because Isco is a world class player when he's in this level of commitment.
Does this also change your perception of? Because really, I mean, not everybody, but certainly I did, and a lot of people have been talking about the 3 big contracts that come off the books: Bale, Marcelo, Isco. Do you think this means Isco gets renewed?
It's tough, and it depends a lot on the coach and all. I don't think so, just because it's been hard for Isco to stay engaged and to stay committed, and you probably don't want to risk another few years of Isco switching off and deciding not to bring his A game for whoever might be Real Madrid's next coach, or even if Ancelotti stays and Modric and Kroos keep playing. But it will definitely be a tougher decision if Isco keeps playing this way, because with Modric's decline and also Kroos is also a veteran player and might be needing some more rest as the years go by. I think this version of Isco is definitely hard to let go as a free agent and let go for free. So it will be a much tougher decision now that Isco seems to be engaged and committed to bring his A game consistently, because what we saw the other day, I think it was world class. I think it was brilliant.
It was a great performance. I'm super interested to see what happens with this contract. We do know typically, and this goes across all sports, the contract year is usually the one where the player really steps up, gets in shape, plays his ass off, get that new contract. But I'd be very curious to see what happens with Isco. I didn't get a chance to talk with you directly about this. I just wanted to put a smile on your face by saying that Brahim Diaz versus Sampdoria was one of the most impressive performances I've seen from a Real Madrid in the past 2 years. And he played the number 10 role.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable performance. And I mentioned this to Matt, and people have already heard me say this on Tuesday's podcast, but the stats don't do it justice, because if you look at his stats, he had 0 key passes, I think, but it doesn't really explain or paint a picture of how unbelievable he was in that game. Like he basically controlled everything. He was the best player on the field. He scored the winning goal.
Number 10, Kiyan?
Yeah, he played the 10 role. Free roaming, was basically everywhere in the build-up phase and the attacking third. His passing was incredible. Dribbling was great. Ball carrying was great. And so I just wanted to give you
Awesome.
I knew that you would
That's
appreciate
definitely
that.
great to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read it on your Twitter account, I think it was, or your Instagram stories, and obviously, I as soon as I read it, I know that he had played brilliantly. But the fact that you said that it was one of the most brilliant performances of a Real Madrid loanee in the last 2 or 3 years is definitely very encouraging, because I think Brahim is capable of great things. Although I'd like for him to play in a different position than the number 10 role, just because Real Madrid going away, and football in general going away from that kind of role and position in recent years. So hopefully Brahim can still show his quality and his skill set in the wings, hopefully.
Yeah, and Matt and I were talking about that too, how it's so funny that so many of our loanee discussion is about, like, Kubo played the 10 with Mallorca this weekend. Right. Odegaard's been playing that position. Then you have Brahim now. And in the past, we're talking about Isco and James and all these people, and Ozil before him. But I will say, like, Brahim can play on the wings too. So it's not a...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would put a top 3 performance with loanees, along with Achraf. Remember those 2 goals I think he scored against Inter in the Champions League? And then Odegaard, take your pick of one of the Real Sociedad games where he was awesome. Maybe the one against Atletico or something. But yeah, it was really, really, really encouraging. All right, it's time. And it's Mbappe time, and I'm really hoping to God that this conversation doesn't get outdated. too soon, because I don't know. Like maybe like within the next 10 seconds or after we hit publish on the podcast, the deal will be done, or maybe the deal will collapse. But let's talk about it. So Edward Sossman says, thanks for pushing all the great content. Most Madridistas are dreaming of an Mbappe and Haaland attacking duo. However, would this constellation work? Do they complement each other? Now with Benzema's contract extension and an official bid on Mbappe, would it be possible to play with all three at once? How would Benzema's position and role change? Actually, Lucas, maybe before we get into any of this, let's talk about updates where we are.
All right.
So tell us what we need to know.
Well, basically, PSG seem to be a bit angry at Real Madrid because of this transfer saga, which is a bit strange to me. But anyway, Leonardo talked yesterday to the press and said that they were not going to hold Mbappe if he wanted to leave. But at the same time, they believe that that Real Madrid's 160 million offer was enough for them to sell Mbappe. Now it seems that PSG want around that there are some controversial reports. Some media in France indicate that they want 220 million euros because they still owe 35 million euros to Monaco, while other media in France indicate that they only want quote unquote just 180 million. Now, just ahead of Kylian pushing the record button, a report from Sky Sports suggested that Real Madrid had sent 170 million offer. Other reports from Le Parisien, which is a very reputed newspaper in France, especially when it comes to PSG news, report that Real Madrid were willing to reach to offer as much as 180. At the same time, the Spanish media, Pedrerol and José Luis Sánchez, seem to be quiet about it for the last 2 days or so. They are not reporting anything about Real Madrid improving their offers or anything for that matter. So basically, we just don't know what's going to happen right now. And it's all a matter of time before we know, because I think that PSG president Al Khelaifi will talk to the press right after the Champions League draw, and maybe he will send the same message that Leonardo told the press yesterday, or maybe he will go a different route. We don't know, but I don't think neither Nasser nor neither Al Khelaifi nor Leonardo have a lot of power to decide whether or not Mbappe is going to leave. I think this is all in PSG owner and Qatar Emir Al Thani, who will be making the final decision, and I believe that he's the one in charge of the situation and quite possibly negotiating with Florentino Perez as we speak.
There was I think it was Fabrizio Romano who posted the quote, and I don't. Let me just dig it up here. This was yesterday, but it was a funny quote from Florentino Perez, who told.
Not true, Kylian.
The root thing wasn't true.
Yeah, that wasn't true. That wasn't true. In fact, I was extremely surprised about Fabrizio reporting that thing with, all due respect to the Twitter user who originally tweeted it. But
Jose Manuel Moreno, that one, right?
Yeah, he has like 1,000 followers, and he's not even a sports broadcaster in Spain, or he's not involved around Real Madrid, so it's nonsense, and I'm surprised that Fabrizio reported it. And I soon tried to confirm whether or not Florentino had made these quotes publicly to the reporter or not, and the club soon told me that they didn't know what the report from Fabrizio was all about, and that they definitely denied the fact that Florentino made those quotes.
Well, now I feel silly. Like I just assume if Fabrizio posted, it's reliable. I felt like now I'm disappointed in him. Okay, so that's out of the way. Let's not discuss it then. Basically the quote was Florentino said that PSG's response was rude, but we're not even going to talk about that now because it's not.
They
true.
they haven't, if we believe Pedrerol and Jose Luis Sanchez, they haven't actually responded or replied to the formal offer just yet. Obviously, we have to account Leonardo's response to the press yesterday as a response and as a reply, as assuming that they have rejected Real Madrid's offer, but they haven't responded to Real Madrid's email or fax properly. Pedrerol himself confirmed the news during today's Jugones show that Real Madrid received no response whatsoever from PSG just yet.
Okay, so let's talk about the flip perspective. In that PSG are upset. And reading those Leonardo quotes was funny to me. I mean, that actually, to be quite honest, the Leonardo press conference was quite shocking in a lot of ways. Like, he was very candid, very transparent, very honest. Not something you always see. A lot of these things are mostly diplomatic in a lot of ways. He said a couple of key things. Let's start with the fact that they're upset and they don't like Real Madrid's behavior. Maybe they don't like the way that they've talked to Mbappe behind the scenes without PSG involved. I don't know. That's ironic because that's what PSG basically do to every club.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that was one thing. I take no issue with the way Real Madrid have approached this. I do think the most interesting part to me was where he said that Mbappe has promised not to leave us for free.
Right.
Right. And so how much do you think that promise matters? Because now if the price is like, if they're telling us 220 million or get the hell out of here or wait for free, I pretty much trust the judgment of Real Madrid's, the way I think they've earned our trust in the way they use their money. However, I will say they're not going to be immune to mistakes, and we've seen that with the Hazard signing. Does 220 million make you nervous at all if it hits that figure? And do you think the alternative really is that he wouldn't leave for free because he made a promise to PSG? Because I don't. Those are just words to me. He's going to move for free, he's going to move for free. There's not a PSG's control promise or not. So does that make you nervous if you start hitting those figures of 220 million when the player is available soon?
Look, I'm obviously not a fan of going over the 200 million bar for a player who is going to be available for free a year from now. But at the same time, I also realize that this is the opportunity for Real Madrid to send a message to the world of football that they are still here, that Real Madrid are still signing Galacticos, that Real Madrid, PSG and Manchester City might have the money, all the money they want, but there are still some big stars in the world of football who would rather play for Real Madrid, even if their contract for Real Madrid is going to be smaller than the one PSG are offering them right now. So I think this is a brilliant opportunity for Real Madrid to send a message also to other players who might be available for free or not for free, but might be in the market a year from now, like Haaland, like Goretzka, like Rudiger, for example, that Real Madrid are still to be taken very seriously. So I trust Florentino's judgment here. I know I've been very vocal and very critical of Florentino's judgment for the last few months, especially when it comes to the Super League announcement. But I trust him if Real Madrid end up paying 200 million, first of all, it's not my money, so it's not something that I should be worried about. And I trust Florentino's judgment here, and ultimately I believe that this is a brilliant opportunity for Real Madrid to show the world of football that they're still here, and again, Manchester City and PSG might have these big countries and this big oil money behind them, but there's nothing you can do to compete against Real Madrid and against the excitement of defending Real Madrid's bats in front of the Santiago Bernabeu just because of the history and the reputation of the club. So I would be a fan of signing them, quote unquote, or what this summer.
What happened with Goretzka's Bayern Munich extension? Didn't he was like last week we heard that he was getting extended. Did that fall through? Because he's still he's a free agent still next season. What's happening there? Do we know?
I think the only official extension for Bayern so far has been Kimmich, who was in the same situation as Goretzka. And Goretzka, there were some reports suggesting that he was ready to sign an extension and all, but nothing has been official just yet. That's contrary to what's happened with Kimmich, who will be staying in Bayern past. He has extended his deal with the German side. So yeah.
Okay, so I care little about sending a message with like 220 million and like swinging our dick around, but I will say, and you and I have talked about this in the past, that like my personal opinion is I think you make the deal now because of reasons I've mentioned in the past many times, but if it's a situation where you're paying an absurd amount of money now because PSG are just being difficult about it, as long as it doesn't hinder the idea of Mbappe and Haaland together next summer.
Right.
Because I've always said I'd rather have no Mbappe now, but get the two of them next summer, rather than having Mbappe now and not getting the two of them next summer.
Right.
Because if you mortgage your financial muscle to sign Mbappe earlier, but you don't have enough for Haaland next year. And look, I know we talked about like Mbappe is not actually free next summer because he's the agent signing fees, but that's still not going to be anywhere close to 220 million. It'd probably be like something like 50 million we're talking about, maybe, if that.
Well, yeah, but he would require a much bigger contract also if he comes as a free agent, though. I mean, we're talking about maybe another 10 extra million on his contract for 5 or 6 seasons potentially. So that's another 60 million. And maybe the father would require some kind of fee also. Obviously, it wouldn't reach 220 million. That's obvious. But at the same time, I don't know. Many things can happen during the course of 12 months, and maybe PSG win the Champions League with him playing brilliant football alongside Messi and Neymar and decides to sign that contract extension because also not only he just won the Champions League, but also PSG are going to offer him 10 extra million than the ones they're offering him now. So many things can happen now, Kiyan. I think you have to do it.
So yeah, I also just wanted to provide a few like scenarios here. Let's say Real Madrid sign him. Let's just say like it lands on 200 million or something. Because we're pretty certain it's not going to be 160, right? We can say that with confirmation, with confidence. So let's say it's 200 million, and Real Madrid win the Champions League this year, and Mbappe is basically everything we dreamed he'd be, and he helps us win the Champions League. Good investment, resounding yes. Alternatively, we decide to wait for him for free, and let's say over the next 12 months, Real Madrid just stink. They just stink so bad that it's like embarrassing round of 16 exit. They start to fall behind the league. It's a tactical mess.
Ancelotti's gone.
Ancelotti's gone. Like it's clear like there's no superstars in this team at this point after Benzema. Maybe Vinicius cools down. I'm just talking about like worst case scenario, okay? Disaster.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, whatever happens at PSG is just a perfect symphony. And Mbappe stays. And he is like, friendship with Messi and Neymar is beautiful. And Ramos is having parties at his house. They win the Champions League. And he looks around. He's like, yeah, maybe I was just naive a year ago. Maybe I'm older now, wiser. It's not always greener on the other side. I think I'll stay. Then you're going to regret not pulling the trigger. So I'm just providing two extreme scenarios that may not actually happen this way either way. And, but just looking at it, like, those are scenarios that it's not inconceivable to me that he could change his mind. No. That's basically my point. So
yeah, especially when we've read reports of Mbappe's father kind of reaching agreements on behalf of his son with PSG for the last month or so, and ultimately Mbappe turning them down and saying no. I don't know. I think Mbappe could easily change his mind if Real Madrid end up struggling a lot this season and PSG play well, PSG improve their for a bit. I think it would be easy for him to change his mind and to realize that maybe it's not right to turn down a lot of money for PSG to join Real Madrid. So I think you have to do it now.
So, with regards to the question, which was, would Mbappe and Haaland fit together along with Benzema,
Right.
where you have those three? How would it work tactically?
I think it would be